You've been told your whole life to believe in yourself. Fake it till you make it. Visualize success. Speak it into existence. Confidence is the secret sauce, the magic ingredient, the difference between the CEO and the cubicle dweller, and you've tried, stood in front of the mirror saying affirmations, walked into meetings with shoulders back and chin up, nodded along even when you had no idea what anyone was talking about. But here's the paradox that will unravel every self-help book you ever read. The more confidently someone speaks, the less likely they are to know what they're talking about, and the more you actually know, the less confident you tend to feel. This is not opinion, it's a century-old psychological law called the Dunning Kruger effect. People with low ability consistently overestimate themselves. People with high ability consistently underestimate themselves. The incompetent are certain. The experts are riddled with doubt. In America, the land of the confident, the home of the braggart, has built an entire culture around rewarding the wrong side of that curve. A study of corporate executives found that the most confident leaders, the ones who spoke fastest, made the boldest predictions, and never said "I don't know," were also the ones whose companies underperformed the most. Their confidence was not a signal of competence, it was a signal that they were too clueless to recognize their own limitations, while the most effective executives were quieter, more hesitant, more likely to say, "Let me think about that." But they didn't get promoted as fast because American culture mistakes volume for value, certainty for skill, and swagger for substance. The neuroscience is brutal. Your brain's metacognitive ability, its capacity to accurately assess your own knowledge, is one of the last cognitive skills to develop and one of the first to break under pressure. So when you're stressed, your brain literally cannot tell the difference between "I know this" and "I've heard this phrase before," which is why cramming for a test feels like learning when it's just familiarity masquerading as mastery, and social media has turned that glitch into a cultural epidemic where a confident lie gets 10,000 retweets and a hesitant truth gets 3 likes. And a reply from someone's uncle because the algorithm doesn't reward accuracy, it rewards certainty. So the most certain people rise to the top, the ones with the least doubt, the least nuance, the least willings to entertain complexity, and we call them influencers, thought leaders, visionaries, effectively building a society that systematically amplifies the voices of the ignorant and silences the voices of the informed. The American twist is that we turn confidence into a moral virtue. Humility looks like weakness. Doubt looks like indecision. Saying, "I don't know" feels like surrender, so we fake it, we bluff, we project certainty we don't feel, and then punish anyone who admits uncertainty, creating a nation of people simultaneously overconfident about things they know nothing about and cripplingly insecure about things they've actually mastered. The engineer with 20 years of experience lying awake worrying she's a fraud, while the guy who watched 3 YouTube videos lectures everyone about virology. That's the confidence paradox in action. But here's the reversal that will only fully land the second time you hear it. The most successful Americans are not the ones with the most confidence. They're the ones who have learned to be comfortable with doubt, who understand that real expertise feels like standing on a cliff in the fog. You know a lot, but you also know how much you don't know. They speak slowly. They hedge their statements. They say, "Based on what I've seen so far," instead of "this is definitely true." And in a culture that rewards bluster, they look weak, but they are the ones who don't crash the plane, who catch their own mistakes before they become disasters, who, when the real crisis hits, actually know what to do because they spent years being humble enough to learn. Let me tell you about Kevin, a stockbroker. The classic, confident, type loud tie. Louder voice, certain about every trade, who made his clients millions in a bull market and took credit for all of it. Then the market turned, and Kevin doubled down on his predictions. So certain he couldn't see the data in front of his face, and he lost everything: clients' money, his job, his marriage, and later in a quiet room he admitted, "I was sure I was right, I felt it in my bones." And someone had to tell him, "That's the problem, you trusted your bones more than the evidence." Kevin had never learned to doubt himself. thought doubt was weakness, so he never developed the muscle of self-correction, and he spent years rebuilding not his confidence, but his capacity for uncertainty, learning to say "I might be wrong" out loud, to seek out people who disagreed with him, to understand that real confidence is not the absence of doubt, but the ability to act despite doubt while staying open to new information. And Kevin never wore a loud tie again, but became a better investor, a better father, and for the first time a person who could sleep at night. The American cognitive paradox is right here. We worship confidence, but confidence is often a liar. We mock doubt, but doubt is the guardrail that keeps us on the road. The only ones who escape the confidence trap are the ones brave enough to be uncertain. They don't lose their ability to act. They lose their need to be certain before acting. They make decisions with imperfect information, admit when they're wrong, and change their minds in public. And in a culture that calls that flip-flopping, they look weak, but they are the only ones actually growing. Right now, your brain might want to defend your own confidence, insisting you are good at your job and should be confident, and maybe you should. But ask yourself, when was the last time you changed your mind about something important? When was the last time you said, "I was wrong" out loud? When was the last time you actively sought out someone who disagrees with you? If the answer is not recently, your confidence might be a cage, not a key. The question from the beginning, why do we worship confidence when the most confident people are often the most wrong, has an answer that the first viewing only half reveals. Real confidence is quiet. Real confidence says, "I don't know, but I'll find out." Real confidence changes its mind without feeling like it's dying, because the loudest voice in the room is usually the most afraid. So now, if something just settled in you, if the thought flickered that maybe you've been rewarding bluster in yourself or others, that's not about me. That's the first real confidence breaking through. And if you feel an impulse to share this with the loudest person in your office, watch them. Dismiss it. That dismissal will prove the paradox better than any study could. Now go doubt something you've been sure about. That's an order.